Matthew Alford. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Altum Healthcare Solutions. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Bridget Cutchen joining us today. So Bridget, if you will, just kind of give everybody your position, how long you've been in healthcare, and a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon, Matt. Thank you for having me on this podcast today, or webinar. My name is Bridget Cutchen. I am an associate director for Emory Healthcare Incorporated over cash applications currently. I have been in healthcare for 36 years, 36 and a half. Done a little bit of everything. Started as a transporter, moved through the access world into the business office, what it was called back then, and patient financial services now. So.
Well, I appreciate you so much. So today's discussion, and I see that I have a couple of my vendor friends that are on the call as well, is about vendor-provider relations. One of the things that I think we've all appreciated about you over the years, Bridget, is your accessibility to vendors. I'm very fortunate to get to call you not only a partner in business, but as a friend. But for those that are, kind of getting into this industry, or even those that have been in for a while and not really seen, what we would consider a large amount of success. And then also kind of just to change with the, the digital age, what do you see as kind of the way you like to be approached? Is it, do you think you get more results out of, is it phone calls, is it emails, is it LinkedIn, or is it even, at conference participation, them coming up, introducing themselves, trying to generate some conversation there? What do you think kind of gets more of a reaction from a provider side, speaking for yourself and then also from some of your colleagues?
Conference introductions are the best for me personally. Cold calls, phone calls just don't work. And I'll say for a lot of my colleagues, it's probably the same. We have so many emails and so many phone calls in a day, just cold calling, probably not the best. Sometimes LinkedIn's pretty good. I feel like I need to have at least introduced myself to you or met you before I LinkedIn, but that's my own personal choice. I know plenty of other folks that, have no problem with that. Emails, it depends, what the subject line usually is kind of how I look at it. If there's some type of product or something that's new, interesting, that might catch my eye, but I'm definitely much more of a one-on-one, meeting you face to face, kind of building a relationship. I would say a good majority of providers probably feel that way too. The reaching out and us not knowing anything about you, you've got to be very lucky and hit us at that moment in time that we might need or are interested in your product.
So, and I know you mentioned how much you get outreach on a daily basis, and that seems to be the growing trend from a lot of other providers that we talk to, and your reluctance in I guess answering the phone and having a conversation just because you have so much going on during the day. I think the proverbial question is, do you believe that cold calling is dead?
Personally, yes. I see absolutely no benefit from it. I'm not going to call you back. If I don't know you, especially, which is, I'm not going to call you back. I don't have time. It's just, this day and age, there's too many other ways to communicate with people, and that's probably the least popular this day and age.
All right. Well, so since you said that is the least popular, I kind of want to shift because I do know, and it's exactly how we met. You've been a past president, a regional exec for Healthcare Financial Management Association. It is something that you've been very involved in multiple different facets. How would you kind of encourage vendors to participate in HFMA? And then what do you see as a good interaction that a vendor could do to a provider at one of these conferences?
Well, I'm very passionate about HFMA. And that is how I have met a lot of business partners over the years. And then I'm lucky enough to call many of HFMA members friends and family almost. Um, for a business partner, the most important thing is to get involved. You have to get involved. You got to build the relationships. Um, and I say that because there's a lot of times you may move from company to company. And if they know you, say Matt Alford, they'll follow you, you know, keep up with you and where you're at and get to know the next company you're at. So it's not even so much selling the service that you have currently, it's selling yourself. Again, every chapter has volunteer opportunities, and it could be from the smallest thing to the largest thing. I know a lot of business partners over the years have benefited from working possibly in the registration area for conferences, any of the networking events, things like that. But you got to get involved and get to know people. And attending sessions does not hurt, because you can sit yourself at tables with other providers and get to know us. And we realize that you're in there and trying to learn our world. So, yeah. And I'd say, that just getting involved and getting your name and face out there.
And that's one thing that was always stressed to me is, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So, let's ask the same question from a provider standpoint. As a provider, you've been very integral with HFMA and your attendance, but also speaking on multiple panels. What do you see as one of the big advantages from a provider? Is it mainly just the continuing education, or is it kind of building a network and seeing what other hospitals are doing and where they're finding success? Kind of give me your feedback on that.
Okay. All of the above, Matt. No, from a provider side, first of all, the continuing education, it's a huge benefit. Even sometimes when it's not necessarily a session that's in your direct area, just to become more familiar with it, know how to affect your organization is huge. Getting involved, again, as little as you can. Sometimes there's some committees that they have that the volunteer jobs are very home based. You don't have to be face to face, but you get your name out there. You get to know business partners, but you also get to know other providers. And on that, the next part of that is you do build a network of providers that you get to know and are able to reach out to at any given moment when things happen. I like to bring up February 21st for anybody that's out there. There was a cyber attack. We happened to be at an HFMA meeting when it hit, and we were all able for days, weeks, months to communicate with each other on what we were seeing, what we were benefiting from, things of that nature. So from a provider standpoint, it's invaluable. I mean, between your business partners, other providers, and just getting to know your community that you're in even.
Well, in speaking of that, and because we are talking about vendor relations, and we're talking about the cyber attack that happened, do you feel like having those relationships with your vendors was kind of, I guess, because you know them on a personal level, and you can you have their cell phones or emails. Did you feel like having those relationships helped y'all? And other providers kind of manage that landscape a lot easier because of the relationships that you have with your vendors?
Yes, definitely. When that happened, I had numerous departments within Emory Healthcare reach out to me, knowing that I had a healthy network of business partners, and asked me, various clearinghouses and various other things. Who knows this? Did I know that? And I was able to reach out to many business partners. And then also, they asked me about particular healthcare organizations. Did I know people there? Well, I may not have known somebody at those, but I was able to reach out to a business partner that I knew might. And so we were able to expand the network even beyond Metro Atlanta, even Georgia, to talk to some other providers, since we're academic, that were more academic in some of the things that they were seeing. So that network just expanded, because here were some other providers I had not known, and now I've got connections with them. But that helped tremendously with especially the early days and when we were trying to come up with solutions for the cyber attack.
So, because we're kind of doing this in two parts, right? We're doing this from a provider side. We're also doing this from a vendor side, um, so that we know. In hearing it from the source is always the greatest part. Do you feel like with the changes in the, I guess, business partner vendor landscape, with more private equity being brought in, companies trying to have a faster growth track, that and I'm trying to think of a good political way of putting this, that some of the salesmen for or saleswomen for these business partners are almost being a little bit too aggressive in their attempt at having conversations with providers, and that's almost being more of a turnoff rather than something that they are embracing and wanting to hear about.
Um, to an extent, some are. That I don't know if you can attribute to the personality of the salesperson, or is it the company? Because I know just from my own relations with business partners, a lot of times they're saying that the company's pushing it.
Hmm.
And then there's others I know, a few over the years that were new in the industry and had to learn how to handle it better, and some have not, but yeah, some have, you know, don't email me over and over, or any provider, every 2 weeks or every month. You're just going to make them angry, to be very honest, and they're not going to really look at what you've got to offer. So, yeah. Now, I will say this much: a lot of people that I do meet within conferences and all, they'll ask me about reaching out. I have no problem with them reaching out. They're usually very good. If I say give me 2 weeks to get back in the office, they'll give me 2 weeks, or I'll say a month, and they'll reach out on time in a month. And but that's appreciative, because I've given you the timeline that works for me. Hitting me the day or two after, or hitting me or anybody right after we get back from a conference or something, or a holiday, it's not, that email becomes at the very bottom. That's the least in the priority list. That's at the bottom of what I'm going to look at, what I'm going to respond to.
So, we talk about outreach, and you talked about some people being newer in the industry and maybe being a little bit, I guess, over eager and in trying to have a conversation. What do you think? Well, actually, we got a great question from Cheryl that just popped up. She said, "Do you think texting is an appropriate form of outreach?"
Cheryl, if you have a relationship with said person, absolutely. If it's a first time, probably not. But yeah, if you've started to build a relationship, and you by no means have to be friends. I mean, I've handed out my cell phone number to new business partners and things like that. And if I've done that, by all means, that says you can text me.
So she said she agreed 100% on that. I think so much of it is what are the relationship dynamics, right?
Yes.
I think from an initial outreach, that might not be the most, I guess, the best way of doing it. But the other thing that I was going to ask you on this, because you said, when we get back or when you're at conference, um, if you had your ideal, how would you want a new vendor or a new salesperson to approach you at a conference? Is it more just trying to get to know them as a person, or is this more of like, hey, let me tell you about my company, let me tell you what they do? What would you kind of pick as your ideal scenario on this?
Well, I have no problem somebody approaching me, coming up, introducing themselves, giving me their business card. Going instantly into a sales pitch, probably not the best thing to do. Just starting with some, basic conversation. But again, and you can say, out, can I reach out to you in, a couple weeks? And I'm going to say, that's fine by all means. But if we've had a conversation that has included not just company, service, and products, a little bit else, I'm going to remember you. And then, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that can tell you, I'll set up a 15, 30-minute call. It's getting in the office this day and age is not really the way you're going to get us, because a lot of us are remote and hybrid, but I have no problem getting on a Zoom or a Teams meeting or WebEx and talking through what you got to offer. Again, may not need it at this point in time, but I'm pretty good about keeping lists. Or if somebody reaches out to me to say, who do I use, or do I know anybody that offers this service, I have no problem passing that information on along. So I would say that's probably best case scenario.
All right. Well, here comes a magical question that Matt Alford has always wondered. So it may be good for the group. Do providers watch vendors and business partners when they're at conference? And let's say, this is not sitting, in a session, but, generally in social hours, social aspects, their interactions with other colleagues, the way they conduct themselves. And do you consider that a reflection of the company that they work for?
Yes, we do watch. We do notice. Typically in an early networking event, first part of the evening and all, that's, I guess, yes, you watch, but you're not, I don't attribute somebody's personality always to the company and vice versa. But anybody that does anything of major, what's the word I'm going to look for? Faux pas. Yeah, it's noticed, and it may very well hurt that person in the long run, because providers talk, as do other business partners talk, and things of that nature might get around. But just in a networking event, or dinner, things like that, it's usually got to take a lot for me to say whoa, and yeah, it can hurt down the road.
All right, so and I appreciate your honesty on that. I think, especially from, because we are a business partner, right? And there are a lot of times that we can find frustration, for lack of a better term, with the sales cycle, right? So there are so many times, and I know a lot of my friends on this, this will agree. We feel like we get to a certain point, whether that is, on the 5-yard line, 10-yard line, and then things kind of just stall out. Or there are times where we may be having conversation going back and forth, and then it just kind of stalls. What do you wish all vendors knew about the sales cycle and the decision processes that y'all go through?
We'll start with decisions. At one point in time in our world, it was maybe 1 or 2 people that made the decision. Sometimes that still happens today, but a lot of times it's brought forth to literally a committee. And we're talking, it could be 10, 15 people, because we have to bring in not just someone from PFS. We have to have IT resources. We have to have some clinical resources, depending upon this, what the service is. Then with the world of Epic and how we have single business offices, and you've got your HB teams, your PB teams. So you're bringing all of these other people plus finance, and then you have your C-suite folks, and it's never a quick decision because of the amount of time, effort, money that are involved with projects this day and age. You just, it can't be quick. We've got to talk through all the possibilities and things like that on our side. And
well, hold on a second. Let me interrupt you, because Bill just came up with a question that hits on this exactly.
Is this ICUS?
Yes. And so Bill says, as hospitals were managing through the Change Healthcare incident,
Mm-hmm.
Many were able to onboard and implement a new vendor very quickly.
Yes.
So we understand, contracting with the hospital requires support and input and approval from all different areas. But this was be able to done in an expeditious manner. So he said, do you have any ideas on what could be done to streamline the contracting process when there isn't an urgency like what happened earlier in this year?
Well, Bill, earlier this year, it happened the way it did is because we were all, I don't want to say desperate, but money, cash is king, and we had to get the bills out. We had to get the money back in, and that was where we were so affected. So that is where it became number one priority. So we were able to bring all resources in very quickly and look through things. But that being said, a lot of those things that we pushed through, now we're having to go back and kind of start um, an installation phase that has already been installed, but we need to go back and have edits built for bills and look at other items. So I don't know that we can streamline it much more. What we do now, because we're back to that conservative phase where we've got to look through everything, test everything out. And then, of course, you have your legal team. And with any healthcare organization, your legal team is going to scrutinize a contract thoroughly, even come back to you, the provider, and ask a lot of questions before it even gets back. The red line gets back to the business partner. And I know that they have to do the same on that side. Of course, with the cyber attack, we all have a lot of additional language in these contracts now, but we might be able to streamline it a little bit more, but not much. And then, of course, at that point in time, that was such a priority that allowed that streamline to go through. And of course, now nobody has just one single priority or project going on. You've got multiple. So long answer to say probably no, Bill.
Bill said he can even ask a question virtually. Um, so
You weren't first, Cheryl was, though.
yeah, exactly. Well, in Hudson Shelton actually asked this question, which ties in to my next question perfectly. So he said, you remember in COVID, in especially when COVID hit, everybody went a lot more remote, and of course there were no or very very curtailed in-person meetings. Um, and now, kind of in this post-COVID world, we're starting to see that open up a little bit more. And he's asking, in your opinion, do you find more value in a business partner or potential business partner coming to see you in person rather than doing a Zoom call? And do you find, having that interaction helps build and strengthen the overall relationship?
Hudson, yes. One-on-one, face-to-face definitely helps to build the relationship better. The difficulty with that are those of us that are substantially remote or very hybrid. It is more difficult for us to get on site and meet face-to-face. But when I can, and I know a lot of colleagues are in the office more so than I am, but yes, it's definitely the one-on-one face-to-face is you just have a conversation that you're not going to have over a Zoom or virtually. It's just not. None of us do. Even with our own teams, you're just in a more relaxed environment, so you have a better conversation to build a relationship.
All right, so let's follow along that trend because that actually goes into my next question. If someone were to reach out to Bridget, and you can even speak for the whole, what do you think is the best first meeting? Is it something in office? Is it a lunch or dinner where it's a little bit more casual and you're getting to know each other? What do you like, and what do you think most of your colleagues would like?
That's kind of a tough answer. I know it should be easy, but a lot of times the best first meeting I have is with a quick Zoom. And then that way, either I can get others involved that need to be part of that discussion, or I can figure out who needs to be part of that discussion. After I know what other teams might need to be involved, then I can reach out to them and we could possibly do an on-site meeting or a dinner or a lunch or something like that. Typically it would be an on-site meeting at our office, but usually it's that first touch base that needs to be kind of simple.
Yeah. Okay. So following, let's say, let's walk through that path, right? So let's say you have an initial Zoom meeting. How much outreach post that initial call do you think is too much outreach?
Typically when most people that I have worked with, I kind of set the expectation of this is what I need from you. Send me this and give me a week or two or whatever, and we'll see what we can set up. Um, so therefore, I kind of set the expectation, and if you break said expectation, then you become too aggressive in my, uh, in my mind. I know other colleagues, kind of the same way. We tell you to, we'll get back to you, and we don't. It's okay to touch base, but don't keep touching base. It just doesn't come over very well.
I can say from a business partner perspective, come from the opposite side, we do wish more would be transparent, like you, of saying, "Hey, give me 2 weeks," or "We're not going to look at this quarter." Reach out
Mhm.
to me. The beginning of 25, or where they kind of give a little bit more direction rather than leaving it myopic where we're just guessing, okay, when do we need to reach out, when do we need to follow up. And so, dude, we gotta love Bill, because Bill is he sent another question that is literally my next question. So appreciate you, Bill. So he said, let's say you have a good initial conversation. It is something that you move forward with. The way that I wrote it is, what do you look for that makes a good business partner? But the way that Bill wrote it was actually in more detail. Somebody does get your business or gets Emory's business. What should the expectations be for, communicating results, reviewing reports? How often do you want them to come by and do on-site visits or just check in? Like, what are you looking for? What do you feel like most of your colleagues are looking for that would make a good business partner and that they are looking for even in the initial conversations that you had?
Initially, with a new business partner, depending necessarily on said product or service, it might be best to have a couple calls a week, every other week, again, to work through those bumps in the road that we may hit or things that we've decided that we want to look at. Then I would say early on, at least once a month, and then you can go to quarterly meeting. But I would say early on, definitely, if not weekly, monthly, to review reports, see how things are going, get the feedback. And I know a lot of folks want to do it in office, especially if you're not meeting that often. It's good to see everybody up close and to be able to talk it through, as opposed to in the confines of the virtual world that we have to now.
We're going to switch gears for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
This is a simple one-word answer. You either give me this is a turn on for a provider or a turn off. Okay. So I think you already said it before. We'll let you answer it. Multiple emails in a short span of time requesting a meeting.
No.
So that's a turn off.
Sorry. Turn off. You told me one answer.
We have to follow it. Stating hypothetical results without knowing anything about your organization.
Definite turn off.
If you're at a conference and the person knows you, they know that you're gonna be inundated with other vendors there. Just saying hey, making an acknowledgement, and keeping it moving.
That's perfect. Turn
on. Vendors bringing sales materials to you, like sales slicks.
I'm gonna say turn off, but that's not fair.
Sales boost. What do you think about sales boost?
I am still a strong believer in them. I got to add more to this though, Matt. This can't be an easy answer. Um, if the conference has a reasonable exhibit hall, I will try and speak to everybody because we're there for we're there for each other. We can't do it without the other. But if it's too many, it gets frustrating because you've got to find the product you might want to look at versus something that you might not know about and would like to hear on. So sorry about that, Matt. Couldn't give you an easy one on
That's, I was quite all right. Logo branded items.
that one. uh, I know it's a hit with plenty providers.
All right. Volunteering with organizations.
Oh, very big turn on. Very big turn.
And just because we're doing it, lunch and learns.
A turn on, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, we're moving in the right direction. So before we get to our ending piece, Hudson actually brought up a great question. Hudson, I appreciate your involvement. And we'd love to hear it from a provider side. So he's saying over the last couple of years, we've seen kind of a big shift in health systems and hospitals working with vendor management type companies to manage their relationships. In your opinion, is that something that is good for the industry in helping y'all pick the right partner for your organization?
Hudson, I am not the best provider to ask that question of. Emory has not used one of those companies in our history. We did have a team and still somewhat have a team that does that for us. So I really, I know that there's other providers that swear by it and say it's wonderful and they appreciate it. I just can't speak from my own experience yet.
All right. Well, so this is probably everybody's everybody's favorite part of this. So I like to call this story time. So you said earlier you have 36 years of industry experience. I need a worst interaction story that you've had with a vendor, and we can keep names out of it.
Oh, not naming names. I can give you a very easy one, and I can give you one that's a little bit more lengthy. But recently, I was at a conference and I was getting breakfast off the buffet, and I had somebody walk right up to me and say, "Hey, you got a minute so I can talk to you?" As I stood there with coffee and breakfast in hand, and this person proceeded to just sell to me, and I thought, none of this is, you're oblivious to all that's going on at this moment. But no, one of the better ones is I've had a couple salespeople over the years. I don't want to say stalk, but every time I see them, it's all about their company and how wonderful it is, and they like to badmouth some competitors. And whether I have that competitor or not, I just not interested in hearing that. But what happened was going to a networking event and was in a ride share and ended up accidentally ending up with two of these people in the same ride share. So the whole ride was nothing but a sales pitch. Needless to say, I did not write back to the hotel with him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can't say the bad without saying the good. Do you have a story of a really good first impression that you've had with a business partner?
I've had a lot more good than I've had bad, Matt. So, a funny story, and since Bill's on, and calling out a name, but when one of my former bosses retired several years ago, Roxanne Arnold, we had designed a T-shirt that had all of our projects on it that she was leaving us with. And Bill, from that day on, kept saying he wanted to be on the T-shirt. He wanted to be on the T-shirt. And we ended up and now are doing business with his company. But as y'all know, Bill's very personable. He's always more concerned about you and your family, as a lot of y'all are, to be very honest, than your organization. That's never the first thing that comes across. So I'm very lucky. I know Cheryl and Hudson and you and Elizabeth, all, a lot of the business partners. I think I'm supposed to bring up Donnie, everybody. They're more personable first before they're salespeople. And that's huge because you remember it. You remember what they're offering. And so when it comes down to somebody in the organization saying, we're looking at such and such, does anybody know somebody that does it? Those are the names that it's much easier to remember and offer up versus, somebody that may have a great product that has a whopping bad personality,
I would completely agree, and I will say, one of the biggest blessings for us, in starting Altum, has been so many of our vendor friends in other companies that have promoted us and dropped our name and what we do and who we are to their clients, and so I can't thank them enough. And all right, so wrapping it up, we're going to let you make one bold prediction before we get off that is completely unrelated to healthcare. Tennessee, Georgia, tomorrow night, 7:30. What is your pick? Is it going to be the Vols victorious, or the Georgia Bulldogs going to redeem themselves?
If anybody that knows me knows, with my sign behind me over here, it's going to be the Vols.
All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that. Bridget, we thank you so much. Everybody in the chat has been thanking you as well for giving us your time, for giving us your insight, and just what you do for us. We can't thank you enough. I'd like to thank everybody that attended for making time for us and making time for supporting Altum Healthcare Solutions. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we will see you next month. Thanks so much. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt.